Back in 2006, we had a lot of really interesting smaller games. None of them really hit the mark per se, but there were a lot of interesting IPs and a lot of interesting ideas that aren't necessarily practiced in today's modern gaming world, which is kind of unfortunate, and I would like to see a lot of these come to PC. Unfortunately, one of them has. It's not particularly amazing, but they sent me a review key for it, so I'm going to go ahead and check it out. Michael here with a PC overview for Bullet Witch, which came back out in 2006 on the 360, I believe. I don't know if it came out on PS3 or not. I think it was just a 360 game. But it wasn't received particularly well. It was kind of buggy and the gameplay was kind of lackluster, and that hasn't changed. If you're looking for a review of this game, it's not particularly great. However, it is a nice callback to that 2006 era to where they were trying out new things and trying out new IPs, and it was a really interesting idea, having a military-style witch going around and killing demons, essentially, which sounds super, super cool. Thankfully, we've got other games that are sort of like that, but this is still an idea that is really, really cool. Anyways, if you're looking through my impressions of the game, I'll be talking about those a little bit later, but as you'll see in the background, I've got the launcher up because we're going to be talking about the PC-specific stuff. Now, there are some problems with this port that I have not experienced. There are problems that I have experienced that others have not, so your mileage is going to vary depending on the bugs that you end up seeing, but for general settings, here is the launcher. There's also some in-game settings for like stuff like volume and stuff like that, but up at the top, you get your graphics card. This is going to be your graphics driver and your display. So it shows two 1070s here. I'm not running two 1070s. I am running one. These are actually my displays. So if I select the second one, it's going to go to my second monitor. And so that's a little bit annoying. That doesn't say which monitor it's going to be going to. But again, you'll figure that out because if you have multiple monitors, it's only a number of selections. You'll figure it out. Display mode, you get the standard full screen, borderless windowed, and windowed mode. I did not notice an VSync option, or at least not in the launcher. Maybe it is in game and I just missed it. But I just run it in borderless window because that's what I do. Some people have reported that it's crashing in full screen. I have not had that problem, so there we go. Then you get resolution. It has a nice selection of resolutions. However, some people have reported that resolutions are just not showing up on their settings options, which is a little bit annoying for some people. And so if you're having that problem, make sure to check the forums and see if it's been patched or not. Supposedly the devs are working on fixing it, but we haven't seen a patch yet, which is a little bit unfortunate. So that may never get patched. I'm not 100% sure, but the game will run at 16:9 or 16:10 or anything along those lines. It has a nice selection of resolutions, which is kind of nice, especially for a game that came out in 2006. Normally we don't see that. One thing about the languages is you are able to select any language you want. However, the in-game voice is going to be dependent on what region you download it from. And so if you bought the English version of the game from Steam, you will get English voices. If you bought the Japanese version of the game, you will get Japanese voices. So keep that in mind, and you will not be able to switch to the other versions, which is a little bit annoying. So my launcher, for some reason, defaults to Japanese all the time, which it probably thinks my system is Japanese. And so I just switched over to English and it's perfectly fine. It doesn't really affect the in-game that much. However, if I reboot my system and then launch the game without launching the launcher, it starts the game in Japanese, which is a little bit annoying. No, I don't get Japanese voices. It's still English voices because I downloaded the English version of the game, but that's just something to do with my system specifically. So if you're having that problem, just make sure to launch the launcher and change language. You get a few graphics options here, such as shadow display and stuff like that. MIP mapping is something that's improved from the 360 version of the game as well. However, shadows are still pretty terrible, and anti-aliasing, it's pretty bad as well. It's not particularly amazing, but then again, the game doesn't look particularly great either. It looks like an Xbox game kind of transitioned onto the 360 like most games back in 2006 did. It has some nice effects here and there, and they have improved the look of it a lot, especially when it comes down to resolution, but there are problems we'll talk about a little bit later. Pad input during background. This isn't working for me for whatever reason. Whenever you're alt-tabbed out of the game, it's supposed to make it so your gamepad works. It does sort of work sometimes, but sometimes when I alt-tab out, it doesn't work. And so I just kind of say it doesn't work and don't rely on it, because if you want to be alt-tabbed out of the game, it's not necessarily a good idea. And then you get gamepad vibration, which is always super nice to see. I like seeing that. Keep window in front. Some people have reported that they're crashing without this option on. No idea what would cause that, but it's there. I hate that option, so because I run things in windowed so I can alt-tab, so that's not necessarily nice. You get your mouse sensitivity. It's kind of unfortunate that we don't have like a number setting or anything along those lines. That's about default. And then you get your frame rate, which can be uncapped. However, I did notice that the physics on the character skirt and stuff like that kind of glitched out a little bit when I went on unlimited, but it didn't seem like the actual combat physics ended up being affected or anything along those lines. So it was just visual, not that big of a deal. But again, I'm running the game capped at 60 FPS, which I think is their intended frame rate. Not 100% sure, but that's what my frame rate is on my PC. So there we go. Let's go ahead and hit play. One thing to mention about that frame rate, one thing that I can also do while it's in windowed mode is I can move it, which is super bizarre. So I can actually move it. You can see my background there. So that's a little bit annoying. I'm actually just going to reboot real quick because I didn't mean to move it. I don't know why you could do that. It's so bizarre. Anyways, that's normally not a problem with most games, but for some reason when it's running in borderless windowed, it's just a window without the border, and then it's positioned in one spot. So if you accidentally click and drag while you're in any of the cutscenes, it will move the window, which is both hilarious and awesome at the same time. Now, that was showing off some of the cutscene stuff about that was like pre-rendered and stuff like that. It is super pixelated and artifacted because all the textures in the game and everything seem to be the default resolution, especially like in this menu and stuff like that. You might not be able to tell on the video so much unless you go full screen, to where it's just everything looks really artifacted and not so great. And that's because the original resolution on the 360 wasn't particularly great, and all the textures and stuff like that were made for that, especially stuff like the UI. You'll notice the UI is a little bit blurry as well. If we go into the options menu, we get a few other options as well. So you get subtitles and your multiple volume sliders. It would be nice to have something that was like volume for sound effects and then voice, because sometimes they get louder, sometimes they get quieter. The kind of audio balance is all over the place in this game sometimes, especially the background music is very hard to hear unless you actually turn down the sound effects and volume and then turn up your normal volume, which is a little bit annoying. Controller config, everything can be completely rebound. Some people have been reporting that you can't rebind the mouse and keyboard without a gamepad plugged in. I haven't had that problem, but again, it's something that people have reported, therefore I'm going to talk about it. But you can actually rebind absolutely everything. I don't know if you can double bind. Hold on, let's see if I can double bind. Can I hit OK and then... No, so you can't double bind. That's fine. I'm not going to be using the keyboard, but the keyboard and mouse controls actually work perfectly fine, and I don't notice any mouse acceleration. It is 1-to-1 raw, which is super nice, and it runs perfectly fine. But I'm going to be using the gamepad, which has some problems with the dead zone that I'll talk about a little bit later. And then you have your miscellaneous, which is your vibration and stuff like that, which is nice, and mouse bias and turn speed, which I had to turn this up in my save, but all of these settings, like, they're here, I think, are, like, defaulted to whatever your save file is. And so when you go into a save file, it will have different options than when you're in the main screen. So basically your audio settings and stuff like that will save with your save file. So you can have it separate on different save files, but at the same time, it doesn't sync between save files, which is super annoying. One thing I didn't show is that the PC version of the game does come with all the DLCs. And so the extra episodes, which I never got to because I never beat this game, and then the extra costumes and stuff like that are unlocked at the beginning. So basically, if you want to go through and like customize your character, it gives you a set of costumes and stuff like that. I can show it a little bit later. And then when it comes down to the extra episodes, you have to finish the game, and then you get extra episodes after you beat the game and stuff. So that's the thing. I don't know. That was just DLC that was on the 360 version. So you can see right off the bat, game doesn't look particularly amazing. It looks like a game from 2006, maybe a little bit earlier. It's not great looking. And one thing that I did notice a lot is that the shadow... Oh my god. I know, I unlocked all these abilities. You don't have to tell me for the 70th time. One thing I did notice, though, is that the shadows are very dithered. You probably won't be able to tell on YouTube because of compression, but it is incredibly dithered because the shadows are not particularly great. It was on the 360, but when it comes down to the actual gameplay, everything is smooth. It runs perfectly fine, especially at unlimited frame rate. I was able to get up to 400 FPS, which was actually terrifying because my graphics card's like, I can't handle this at 400. And I'm like, why are you running at 400? But yeah, anyways, you'll notice some bugs with like physics here and there, but I think that was just a problem with the default game in general. Different weapon. So there's some sound quality stuff. Oh my god, this gun is so inaccurate. Why am I using it? So you'll notice some quality issues here and there with the audio and stuff. The game, like I said, wasn't particularly amazing, and so the PC version of the game really doesn't improve that. It does look better than the 360 version of the game, mostly because of the resolution increase, and it runs smooth. The original 360 version of the game, which I don't remember performance all that well from that version of the game, because I didn't really particularly play it much, because, again, it's not a particularly amazing game. But the game runs at a solid frame rate, especially if you can end up handling it. Now, if you have a low-end machine, you can always end up capping the frame rate at 30, but it seems to be more consistent. Here's another cutscene, by the way. Super artifacted, super low quality. It looks like it's at 720. It might be 1080, and then it's just heavily compressed, but I'm not 100% sure what quality it is. All I know is that it looks awful in comparison to the actual in-game rendering.
I'm Maxwell Cougar.
That's Maxwell Cougar.
We don't see many soldiers dressed like you up here.
And that's the voice acting. So yeah, the game itself hasn't been improved whatsoever. There are no bug fixes. There are no, changes to the balance. There are no gameplay enhancements or anything along the sides of, like, except for being able to use a mouse and keyboard, which is actually super nice. So you'll see here. It doesn't have any mouse acceleration. There might be a small amount, maybe. Not 100% sure. That could just be my mouse. My mouse has been screwing up lately. I need to get a new one. But for the most part, it seems to work perfectly fine. The controls are a little bit strange because it was designed for a controller. And so, like, for example, you have a toggle button for zooming in, and you use the middle mouse for, like, your spells and stuff like that. Now, one thing to mention about the gamepad, however, is that there is some like weird dead zone issues every once in a while when I launch the game, and I don't know if this is specific to my system. I've been having driver issues with my Xbox One controller recently, and it seems to be a problem with that, so this may not be a problem with the game, but some people have reported that their dead zone is a little bit off, and so like it's just way too incredibly sensitive. And I didn't really see a way to fix that. There was the mouse bias option, which seems to be your, you know, how much your mouse needs to move for it to move. And yeah, that didn't do anything for the controller. And so some people have reported that the controller feels a little bit strange in comparison to the 360 version. And I think that's just because of the controller you're probably using, because the game doesn't seem to have any sort of option for dead zone whatsoever, which is a little bit annoying. But yeah, so for example, for the gameplay though, you know, you can see it in the background. It's the game it originally was. It's not particularly amazing. It's a game. I mean, that's really all I could say about it. It's an interesting idea, and I'm not going to say it's not fun, but it has a ton of downtime, and the spells, for example, are a little bit annoying to use as well. It's not a particularly amazing game. But if this is what you're into, I mean, if you've been looking for this on PC, or maybe you played it back on 360 and you want some nostalgia, then yeah, game runs perfectly fine. I haven't noticed any problems with the port specifically that have really affected my gameplay experience. There have been those issues that other people have experienced with like resolution and stuff like that, and some people have kind of dramatized it as in the game's unplayable, which I don't really necessarily think that. However, if you're going to be playing it on PC, you're definitely going to want your proper resolution, etc., etc. And so I definitely can understand that feeling of like, oh my god, I can't believe this isn't working sort of thing. But yeah, the gameplay itself, if I go into my thoughts of the game, because the port is decent. I mean, it's a passable port. It supports more than I would expect from these sorts of games. Normally, when we get a port from this sort of era, we normally don't get things like extended resolutions past 16:9. So the fact that they actually have resolutions that aren't 16:9 and support it is incredibly awesome. And the fact that the game actually has an uncapped frame rate as well, and you can perfectly play at it perfectly fine, is again perfectly awesome, and the game actually, you know, renders properly and runs perfectly fine as well. So that stuff is great. The game itself, though, I don't particularly recommend unless this is like super your thing or you're really looking for an old school style game, because this game feels old style, and there is a ton of downtime in this game. Because, wait, was there an objective I was supposed to destroy somewhere? I don't remember. Now the music's getting really, really loud. Maybe my settings didn't actually save when I go into my options. Maybe it didn't actually save it. No, it didn't save it. Oh my goodness. That is annoying. Yep, saving. The sound balance is all over the place as well, which I think was a problem on the original 360 game as well. There's a lot of older games. Oh, one thing that I did not mention is that this was, again, a problem with the original game, and you'll actually find it in old reviews, is that when you end up pausing the game and changing the volume or whatever, it will end up just kind of getting rid of the sound sometimes, which is super, super frustrating. But I kind of remember that being a problem with the original game as well. So again, but now I don't even know where to go. Is there an objective marker on here? I don't know. So going back into my impressions of the game, yeah, the game, not particularly great. However, if your thing is totally like these old style games, you just want to play like one of these, then I guess go for it. I mean, it's a game. It's not unenjoyable. It's just got a lot of downtime, and I feel like there's a lot of better third-person shooters you can play. That said, however, it is kind of priced like in the right zone, I would say, to where it's... What was my spell button again? Oh my god, I know. I don't care. I want to use other abilities because that ability doesn't actually work on that barrier. Anyways, yeah, so like the game itself, like if this is totally your thing, because it is priced at the right kind of price zone, I think it's like $15 or something like that, then I guess, I mean, I don't recommend it unless you're like super into this stuff, but that's really me. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this one, and leave your thoughts on the game below in the comments section. And, you know, maybe there's some stuff I'm missing about this one. I don't necessarily know. It's been really hard to find people talking about this game because, again, it's not a particularly great game, and therefore a lot of people are just kind of ignoring it. I think it has some interesting ideas. You know, I'm very early on in the game, so I don't have all the spells or anything along those lines, but, you know, it's not an amazing game. And so not a lot of people are really going through it and like playing it and being like, oh my god, this is a must-play game. It's more of along the lines of like, oh yeah, I remember this on 360, decided to pick it up because, what is it, willpower? Yeah, it doesn't work on the barrier, even though it says to use it on the barrier. Tutorials are garbage in this game. So yeah, it's Anyways, if you like my styles of content, you can check out my website at michaelpstanich.com, and of course you can check out our gaming Discord called The Broken Chat Box. If you want to talk about Bullet Witch, go ahead and head over there and say hello, because, I don't know, we'll talk about stuff, I guess. Am I supposed to destroy this? I know you can. I know I did before. Maybe I can't and I'm just supposed to jump over it and walk away. I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to destroy it and I don't remember how I did it. It's been a while. There it goes. Yeah, I don't know. If you want this game, go ahead and get it. I probably won't play it again, to be 100% honest. I might stream it at some point when I get bored. But outside of that, it's not one I'm going to use my time on. Anyways, like I said, thank you guys so much for watching. And oh my god, that car is flying.